Well, let's get started. This might not even take the whole class period today. I know you'd be totally disappointed about that. So, what we're going to do is, last week we talked about organizational structures. I kind of got ahead a week on teaching. I want to go back, and the materials you actually covered last week in your own self-study on entrepreneurial ventures, I want to talk about that this week. So there is no midterm exam this week, so we'll just run class like normal. I think we still have normal class periods, though, right? All 3 class periods this week. So we'll talk about entrepreneurism. I won't be here Friday, so my daughter's wedding is Saturday. I was wanting to get better so I could get to my own daughter's wedding. So I'm for sure taking Friday off to head to Wisconsin. I might leave Thursday. So we won't have class Friday anyway. So we're just going to talk about entrepreneurism today and Wednesday. And it's a pretty simple discussion, easy to wrap your mind around. This isn't like one of the deeper concepts, but some of you might be interested in entrepreneurism. And entrepreneurism sounds like such a cool thing. But let's start off with this. What's the difference between being an entrepreneur and a small business owner? I think we talked about it a little bit, but yeah.
And at least one aspect is innovation, and that's entrepreneur instead of small business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what do you mean by innovation?
So if you come up with a new way to go about providing a service, or you come up with a completely new product, that would be entrepreneurship. If you were repackaging and selling products, that would be a small business.
Yeah.
I remember last time we talked about this, we talked about a small business is one that, it's just a business that's small. It can capitalize on a market that's there. But an entrepreneur seeks to solve a problem. So they see a need and they create something to meet the need.
Yeah. What else? You have Simba on your shirt. What is that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And Hakuna Matata. I think you said it backwards. Oh, Hakuna Matata.
Matata Hakudu.
Anything else about entrepreneurs? What do you think
What
is
was the
harder?
original question?
Entrepreneur versus what?
What was the original question? Because I forgot
Just
it
what's the
after.
difference between small business and entrepreneurs?
Okay, I don't have anything in lightning.
So which do you think is harder? You're given a choice, and someone says, hey, I'm going to invest in you. I'll give you a $100,000 grant. It's either become a small business owner or to be an entrepreneur. Which one would you choose, and why would you gravitate that?
Entrepreneur.
Why?
I think it has the larger risk. I think it has the larger reward because it allows you to have the opportunity to do something new in the field. It gives you the potential to be, one of the big dogs. Not like that's the ultimate goal for everybody, but it at least allows you for that one aspect of innovation to do something new and different. So for that aspect, that's what I would
You choose entrepreneur. Yeah.
I think small business owner would be easier because so many people have done it before, and you can just follow their example and learn from them. Whereas entrepreneurialism, it's a much tougher thing to do. If everybody had a great idea, then everybody would be doing it. But not everybody has that.
Mm-hmm. So for you, you'd be more risk averse. You'd rather go with more sure thing than take a risk.
Maybe I don't know.
Okay, listen.
I think for me, I'd rather do like an entrepreneurship type thing just because it gives you're more flexible with where you can be with it. You're not just, a small business owner, you kind of have to pick one location and stick there, but as an entrepreneur, you kind of have the opportunity to travel around and make different connections and meet more people and just keep building and growing that way. Whereas if you're a small business owner, I feel like the risk is bigger for an entrepreneur because it is harder. But as a small business owner, you're really limited with your resources in the sense of you're trying to build community within this small section because that's your main target audience. Whereas like with entrepreneurship, you're pretty much you go wherever you want to go for the most part.
What do you think, Matt?
I think it kind of depends on the market, because I think some things could really take off and other things couldn't. And then it also depends on if you've isolated or found a need that you can meet. You know, so if someone just came up and said, "Hey, I have $100,000," if I don't have a need that I've been thinking about and thinking about how to solve that, then I would do small business. But if there's already a need that's been identified and I'm thinking of a way to solve that, then entrepreneur is a better option.
Let's get you for the have an answer. Yeah, what do you think? Would you prefer to be a small business owner or an entrepreneur, and why would you gravitate that way?
I'd probably go just because like there's already an evident problem that you're trying to solve, so it's something that potentially if it succeeds, then you'll be able to solve a problem of a small business. Like you're just adding a business to like so if you're going to add a coffee shop, like there's other coffee shops in this area, what makes yours? It's more of like a selling point. Like you have to make it more desirable than something else. It's like a growing point there. But I think entrepreneur, like you have a problem already there that you have to fix. So it's easier to open that up to the community and be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like let's try out this like restaurant or this store.
Okay. Kaylin, what about you?
This may make no sense at all, but I'd probably start as a small business just because I feel like if I started there and then if I got into that business, I would start having more ideas on how I could advance it and maybe take it in a different direction, unless I had an idea to start with. If I had an idea to start with, I would start with being an entrepreneur, but I feel like I'd start as a small business owner and then kind of grow off of that and try to redirect.
Rebecca, what about you?
I don't really know. Probably entrepreneur. Just I feel like it'd be more fun. Like I'd have a lot of freedom to, I don't know, make the decisions that I wanted to make. And
Abigail?
I'm kind of with Kaylin. I would definitely want to start as a small business owner. I'm not a risk taker, and so knowing that I have being more assured that I have a sure that it's secure would be something that I would want. But at the same time, I would not be content just to be another coffee shop.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I would want that. I would want to meet those needs, and so there's a little bit of me that's torn between the two.
Change my answer. Well, so first off, an entrepreneur can, your entrepreneur adventure could be a small business. So there are some overlaps, right? So some people wouldn't want to do either because there's great risk, right? So if you own a business, whether you're an entrepreneur and you're solving something new, or you're buying someone else's franchise and you're selling their thing, there's great risk either way. The potential upside of being an entrepreneur is doing something creative and cool and experimental, to try and meet a need that's not being met. But a lot of business people are in business to make money, and small business owners sometimes have more of a sure thing. So if I said, you could either go out and design your own restaurant, or I will set you up with a Chick-fil-A franchise. Well, you might be like, Chick-fil-A is kind of a sure thing. There's no failing Chick-fil-A in America that I'm aware of. Everyone that owns a Chick-fil-A becomes very wealthy, if they just follow the system. And so now all of a sudden, being a small business owner sounds more attractive because it's more of a sure thing versus going out and trying to design, okay, what kind of food would I sell? What would my recipes be? How would I market it? So entrepreneurs a lot of times have to take on a lot of extra work because no one is laying the path for them. Flip side is it gives them, so some of you that are in the Biz Lab group with Bluebeam, I asked Jeff Reed why he went from he was in management in some local, I don't know if it was Casey's or Hy-Vee or something like that, but he was in a managerial position, and I asked him what was it like to let go of that trapeze, hoping that there'd be something else out there when he started his own business. And he said that he felt like he knew that he always had his own best interest in mind and his own family's best interest in mind. So to start something versus working for someone else, he felt like he could watch out for his own interests better than some big company. And so that's what made him take the leap into being an entrepreneur. So he started a couple of businesses with that. So I think it's a little bit of a trick question too, because it is industry specific. It is like, is there an opportunity? Would you rather have a sure thing, like you can buy a franchise where everything, you pay the money, you do the system, and it's guaranteed moneymaker, or would you rather have the creative flexibility to do it your own way? And so, but no brand recognition, no marketing, no support. So that's why people pay big money for franchises, because you're banking on the fact that they have already done all the hard work. So, and then that consistency helps you build your wealth. So entrepreneurism, it's an attractive concept, but it's not easy. So being a small business owner is not easy either. So I don't know, are any of your folks small business owners? Yeah, your dad's got a handyman business, right? So, you have to always be out there hustling. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, you're just always out there trying to find work. So every day you're not making money, can be a painful day. So, okay, well, what I'd like to do is probably one of the most effective entrepreneurs of this generation is Richard Branson. Started Virgin Records and then started Virgin Atlantic Airlines, and now, of course, Virgin Space. They're launching rockets. They're doing crazy stuff. Have you watched any of the Virgin Space launches? So they have like a remote controlled like aircraft carrier that launches a rocket. The rocket will launch, but instead of the rocket going to waste, after the rocket is launched, the main capsule, the booster rocket, lowers itself back down out of space and lands right back on the ship. So they don't have to waste the money on every time there's a new rocket. It's unbelievable what they're doing. They're going to be
association with Tesla.
They have done some stuff with Tesla, I believe, but the Virgin one is the.
Yeah, so it would be SpaceX, which is Elon's other.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. They cross over. They've done some stuff together, if I'm not mistaken. But just they're doing already orbital travel that you can already take a flight into, subspace and stuff like that. So for Richard Branson, he's pretty famous for his entrepreneurialism and the risks that he's taken with it. So I wanted to watch just a real short, this is a very, very short video of him talking about it, and then we're going to get into kind of the content from the chapter. So. He seems like such a normal guy, right? He's like multi-billionaire, but so Richard Branson, now 300 to 400 companies around the world, all under the banner of Virgin, and he's just a guy that he got into business and then he started seeing problems that he could solve. So like when he started the airline, it was because he found that there was a problem with the airlines, and so why not start this? And so, but he's made smart decisions along the way too. It's not like he only has the golden touch. There are plenty of people that have gone down the same path that couldn't have the same level of success. So, and then some of it's just God putting the right person in the right place at the right time. So let's talk about managing entrepreneurial ventures here for a few minutes. And let's see. So entrepreneurship, process of starting new businesses, generally in response to opportunities. So this is small business entrepreneurship can overlap. It can be you could have a small business that has an entrepreneur venture, but they're not necessarily the same thing. So, and we're not gonna look at the history of it. Common misconceptions about entrepreneurship. Successful entrepreneurship needs only a great idea. No, not necessarily true. So I worked for a Fortune 500 company, ADP. We did payroll services for restaurants and schools and construction companies, you name it, any kind of business there was, we did it. I even had a client that was in the mafia. So, but so many businesses go out of business because they think, ooh, I got a great idea. Everyone's going to love this. So someone tells you your whole life, you know what, you're really good at making donuts. You should start a donut shop. And so you're like, man, well, if everyone's telling me they like my donuts and they're really popular at showers and parties, maybe I'll start a donut shop. And so you go out and you get a $100,000 loan and you get a storefront, you start making donuts. 3 months into it, you're $150,000 in debt and no one's buying your donuts. And it's like, what happened? All my friends told me they love my donuts. Well, just because you make donuts for your friends for bridal showers, that's not the same thing as starting a $100,000 business where you have to sell, 750 donuts a day to make all your payments. So just because you have a good idea or a skill doesn't necessarily mean that you're just going to be winning at this. Entrepreneurship is easy. Entrepreneurs never get a day off. They never get to step away from the business. So the reward might be higher, or the potential reward, and you might get a higher paycheck. On the other hand, if it fails, it's all on you. I mean, it's tied to your whole life. There's no separation hardly. So it's not easy. It's a risky gamble. That's the other end of the perspective. It doesn't have to be that either. It doesn't have to be that it's like rolling dice, and if you get all sixes, then you're going to win, and if you get ones, you're going to lose. Entrepreneurship can be a very well planned out thing. Found only in small size businesses. This is the other misconception. That's why sometimes people think, ooh, small business and entrepreneur. Entrepreneur could start out really big, could get a government contract solving something and start off with a large staff. Entrepreneurial ventures and small businesses are the same thing. We already talked about that. Definitely not. Self-employment, individuals who work for profit or fees in their own business, profession, trade, or farm. So being self-employed is not necessarily being an entrepreneur. So sometimes the term entrepreneur sounds the coolest. So you'll hear people say it the most. But it's probably good to understand the differences between being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, being a small business owner. So an entrepreneur is someone who starts an entrepreneurial venture, okay? Why is it important? So this is something that's very important. Not all countries have this. So being in the US, we're used to people, it's almost promoted like, hey, we need some people to get out there and invent stuff and be young entrepreneurs. It drives innovation. So every new thing, this Yeti mug, my cool Guam mask, my cell phone case, someone had to come up with an innovation to create that. Innovation is driven by entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Innovation can apply to ideas as well as opposed to just objects, right?
Yes, yeah, it doesn't have to be a product. It could be a concept. It could be a new system of doing something. It could be a philosophy. I mean, innovation is just a way of doing things. So sometimes it results in a product. Number of new startups. So our country economically is dependent on businesses starting all the time. So matter of fact, it's one of the things that they measure. If you listen, like during political campaigns and stuff, they try and measure how many new businesses are starting up, how many new exciting things. And when you have like a political candidate come to the state of Iowa, they'll take them to, someone that has started a new business or started some kind of new entrepreneurial thing, or they invented a new, piece of equipment or whatever. Job creation. If you don't have new stuff starting up, then the job market stagnates. You always need something new coming up. There are things being made and designed and developed today that weren't even on anyone's radar 10 years ago. But those things 10 years ago that were going away and people were losing their jobs in those factories, now with these new startups, now there's jobs for them to go to. And then global entrepreneurship is very important as well, you know, which we spent a ton of time talking about globalization earlier this semester. So entrepreneurs assess potential and startup opportunities. They launch the venture and they manage the venture. I think we do that. So. Yeah, okay. I did that. There we go. What happens in the process? Exploring the entrepreneurial context, identifying opportunities, starting the venture, managing the venture. So you cannot get into, you can't just kind of stumble into being an entrepreneur. It does take some work, right? Some research, some thinking, some planning. You have to identify opportunities and possible competitive advantages. So this is exactly what Jared said at the very beginning, like this is where entrepreneurism happens, is there's got to be an opportunity. And then how do you get it started? You might see something that really needs to be done, but you might have no way of knowing how to get going with it. This starting the venture is really critical to whether or not it's going to be successful. So you might see a new thing that will revolutionize some industry. You know, you're working somewhere and you're like, man, people are always burning themselves on this piece of equipment. If there was just a shield you could create to protect people from this, you know, so you might have an idea, but then it's like, well, how do I manufacture it? And then where do I get the money? And, you know, who do I test it with? And does it have to have some kind of government certification? And so do any of you guys like watching Shark Tank? Do you ever watch Shark Tank? It's basically, you see people coming up with entrepreneurial ideas, and some of them are really amazing. And some of them are like, I don't think they're ready. I don't think they're gonna. I watched the one where the guy had invented, he was a cowboy out in California, and he had this thing for like horse manure that would attract flies to a cone. Basically, you had to make sure there was horse manure somewhere. So that was the first problem. And then you put a cone over it, and then the flies would go into the cone and get stuck on the manure. And it was just, he got shot down big time. But, you know, it's a lot, there are a lot of steps in there, right? It doesn't just happen automatically. And then managing the venture. Let's say you get it going. Let's say you're able to raise the money, or you have a rich uncle that believes in you and you've got a great idea. But you know, you could totally have a great idea and all the money and it still fail just by poor management. So, and that's what this chapter really is about, managing it. Of course, this is something we've already talked about a little bit this semester. This comes up, this is going to come up in every business class you'll ever take. Social responsibility. Social entrepreneur and individual organization seeks out opportunities to improve society by using practical, innovative, and sustainable approaches. So you'll see a lot of people that this is their way of kind of checking two boxes: being an entrepreneur, but also doing something important for the world. So, you know, they come up with well, one of my favorite athletes, Ryan Hall, he was an American Olympic marathoner, right? Him and his wife, Sarah. Well, they started a clean water outreach. They're Christians, so they dig wells in Africa. Well, so it's a way for them to be entrepreneurs, because you have to figure out, okay, how do we get the well digging machine there, and how do we do it, and what about government regulation, and how do we make it pay for itself? But it also has this social responsibility to it, so they can use their innovation. I've often thought about this, like someday when I'm done with college, like, could I create some kind of entrepreneurial, you know, outreach or ministry or some kind of work program that actually meets a need in the community, but also allows me to be innovative. So it's very appealing. It's better than just doing it just for money, right? So Planning new ventures, potential sources of opportunity. The word opportunity is the big thing for entrepreneurs. So first off, the unexpected. Right here. So my friend, she owns a Christian bookstore in Guam. They had someone approach them about making Guam face masks. So you got a picture of, this is the ocean that's like right by my house. This is the Guam seal, which you have to have legal permission to be able to use. It's like an American flag. And these things, this is the best mask I got. And I ended up getting like 5 of them. Well, there was a new opportunity came up. I mean, no one was selling face masks at all 8 months ago. And now, you know, she's sending these all around the world. So the unexpected opportunity came up. Incongruous opportunities. So sometimes there's not enough of something good. And so there's an opportunity for someone to come up with another version of it, right? So that would be, you know, face masks might be the same thing too. There was such a huge need for face masks and there were so few coming out. The process need, I won't get into that, industry and market structures, demographics. Sometimes you might just, you know, strike gold because you've come across something and there's a demographic group that you just have opportunity. When I was a kid, played soccer, and there was a guy who was a soccer coach, and he started his own soccer uniform business because his kids were all in the soccer league and there wasn't really any good uniform sales place. So he started his own uniform sales place. It went huge. Changes in perception, new knowledge. Sometimes there's just new things that come up that just give new opportunities. Researching feasibility. This is where the hard work has to come in if you want to be an entrepreneur. If you're going to get anyone to invest in you, they're going to want to see all your research. So I'm trying to think if any of you, none of you were in, no, because it was this class. So this class last year, we went over and we met with Kevin Harrington over at Leaning Tower Pizza. And he sat down with us and talked to us about how he started Leaning Tower Pizza. And it was really good. He's not a Christian, but he was very transparent with us about, so he bought the pizza place and he went in business with his father-in-law, now his ex-father-in-law. And to be able to get the money for purchasing the pizza place, he had to have like a 35-page business plan, which was a ton of research. You have to know everything. You have to know, but why would a bank give you, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars? It's such a high risk if you're not willing to do the hard work. So he said he had never written a business plan before. It was just a ton and ton. It took him months to write it. Then they decided to expand to 2 other locations, to DMAC and then to Polk City. And well, by the time he did the first business plan, he learned a lot. So then the second business plan, when they moved to Polk City, it was a little easier and a little more detailed. And then the DMAC plan came around and they actually really knew what they were doing by then. They had to do a ton of feasibility work. Now his long story short, him and his wife ended up getting divorced, and now he's, you know, in this failing Polk City. It's a different restaurant now, but in the square there in Polk City, there's a pizza place. I forget what it's called. It's like Nick and some things, whatever. But that was a Leaning Tower for a while, and so they had to, like, you know, break up the business and all this stuff. But feasibility study was a lot of the hard work that goes into whether or not there's no guarantee you're going to succeed. You can pretty much guarantee you're going to fail through a feasibility study. So if I say, you know what, I want to start a new restaurant right here in Ankeny, I want to start a shawarma restaurant. Well, I could make me hungry right now, but not everyone likes Lebanese food, you know. So you have to do a little bit of feasibility. Is that going to actually work? Or I want to start a new, you know, Mexican restaurant in Ankeny. Well, we happen to have like 15 Mexican restaurants in Ankeny already. So feasibility wise, am I going to be able to get enough of the market share to justify having a restaurant? You got to do the research, right? Analysis of the various aspects of proposed entrepreneurial venture designed to determine its feasibility. So where do entrepreneurs say their idea for a business came from? 34.3% said sudden insight or chance. So something just opened up and they were like, I'm going to do that. I met a guy last year at a networking thing. He has a business where they do radon inspections in basements, which is a big deal here in Iowa. Radon is like, everyone's afraid of it. So, but when they were doing inspections in people's basements, they noticed a lot of these basements were leaking water. So he's like, man, we're already down here. We're identifying all these leaky basements. Why don't we start a leaky basement repair company? Because when our radon guy's in there and he sees that there's water in the corner, he could just say, hey, here's a card of my sister company. Why don't you give us a call? We'll see if we can fix your leaks. And then from that, they said, well, we need a excavation company that can do backhoeing along the side of the foundations. Why don't we just start up? And so what happened was just sudden insight and chance. Now they've got 3 or 4 companies. 23.5% of entrepreneurs say they're just following their passion. You know what? You just love something and no one's going to tell you different, and that's how you get it started. 11.8 said suggestion or collaboration. This is something that you'll see people that are business people. We're going to have a guest speaker in here sometime probably this semester, Nate Koenig. He is like this. So he sees an opportunity and he'll be like, you know what? I don't want to start this company, but I'll help someone else start it because I see that there's a need and it'll actually help us with our company. 10.8% said market research. Some people are just out there, they're like, I don't really have a passion about any one thing. I just would like to solve a problem. And so let's find out what problems are out there. And then 7.8 said other. So you have to consider a couple different things, and we'll end with this for today. When you're evaluating potential ideas, you have personal and market considerations. So your personal considerations, do you have the capability to do what you've selected? If I say you want to go out and you want to start a new, you want to start a mask making company, do you actually have the capability to do it? Like, do you know how to sew? Do you know enough about fabric? Are you equipped to do it? Are you ready to be an entrepreneur? Last year at the Business Leadership Summit, one of the guest speakers, Ed Cohn, talked about this. He talked about the 5 questions you have to ask yourself before you know if you could be an entrepreneur. And he said, if you can't say yes to all 5, like, can you handle the risk? Do you have the money? Have you got any experience? Stuff like that. Are you prepared emotionally to deal with the stresses and challenges of being an entrepreneur? It literally will take years off your life. You got to be ready for that. Are you prepared to deal with rejection and failure? Talk about being very, very transparent. Your whole life is tied up into this one venture, and if people don't like it or it doesn't go well, you're going to feel like a personal failure. Are you ready to work hard? That's the big one. I think you got people that are like startup bros and they think, oh man, we'll just get a couple college buddies together and we'll all borrow, $30,000 from our parents' 401ks and we'll go out and start something really cool. And then it fails. There's got to be just a ton of hard work. Do you have a realistic picture of the venture's potential? You cannot only assume the maximum upside. It never works out that way, right? Maybe educate yourself about the financing issues. That's a big part of it. And are you willing to and prepared to do continual financial and other types of analyses? It's just because you get it started doesn't mean it's going to just keep going forever. You have to manage it. Marketplace considerations. Who are the potential customers for your idea? Who, where, how many? Got to be honest about it. Again, if you want to start a Mexican restaurant in Ankeny, you're most likely not going to make it unless you do something different than all the other Mexican restaurants that are here that are all run by great Mexican restaurant people. What similar or unique product features does your proposed idea have compared to what's currently on the market? Again, you can't open something right next door to something else and expect that yours is just going to be better because it's newer. How and where will potential customers purchase your product? You got to understand that. Of course, have you considered pricing issues and whether the price you'll be able to charge will allow you to venture, survive, and prosper? So, you know, you might have a financial model in your head, but what if people just aren't used to paying it? In Guam, we didn't have Sam's Club or Costco. We had a place called Cost You Less. And then we had another place called Save More, I think, for a while. The Save More place tried to come in like a Sam's Club type model where you pay a membership fee every year. It's like $65 a year. It's really nothing. They went out of business after 2 years because people in Guam were not used to paying membership fees for anything. They are cheap. So even though it had the best of everything, it was like a Costco. It was totally worth $65. They went out of business after a couple of years because people weren't willing to pay it. Have you considered how you will need to promote and advertise your proposed entrepreneurial venture? Some people, they love the marketing side. It's actually just getting it done. Other people, they're really good at the technical aspect, but the marketing is really what they're lacking. So this whole discussion, and we'll finish this on Wednesday, is all critical to understanding what entrepreneurialism is and whether or not you're cut out to do it. I would guess that maybe 1 in 100 people are really cut out to be entrepreneurs. Now, small business owners, franchise owners, startup stuff, you know, self-employed, that's different. You know, starting your own construction company, starting your own clothing company, you know, things like that. Those are not necessarily entrepreneurial ventures. They might just be, hey, I'm starting a landscaping company because there's a lot of landscaping opportunity around here. You know, but doing something truly entrepreneurial, it's tricky. It's really tricky, and you don't want to underestimate that. And you might not be into that, you know, out of a room like this, maybe one person might be interested in that, but you might have friends that talk about it all the time. You know, you might be able to be there to give them some good advice along the way to help get them started on the right track. So I would bet, and this might come up later in the chapter, but I bet most entrepreneurial ventures fail. I wonder what the actual stats are in the US. It's got to be less than 25% succeed, just because of all the variables, some things that are totally beyond your control. I mean, think about if you had started an entrepreneurial venture this year and then COVID hits. I mean, you know, you have no safety net, right? The government isn't going to bail you out. There's not enough customers out there to support you, and so it could fail. Anyway, any comments or questions on this at all? So it's the dark side of entrepreneurship, right? It's the hard part. And so we'll finish talking about this on Wednesday. Okay, that's it.